I mean, I've deliberately brought out my 60s Marmite for this.
It's a bit out of date. I wouldn't eat it.
Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2 of our season 1, Talking About Who. With last time we did the first 4 stories, and the results of the international jury suggested that our favourite story thus far is The Daleks on 23, followed by Marco Polo on 22.5, An Unearthly Child on 20, and then Edge of Destruction, bottom of the barrel with 16. But there are 4 more stories to come, so it is all to play for. I'm Paul, or PBal, and I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm James.
And hi, I'm Jason.
So we're just over the halfway point, which means we're now heading back to another Terry Nation. It is the Keys of Marinus. Who would like to start with their thoughts on Doctor Who and the Void?
Oh, go on. I will start on this one because it's an interesting plot that there's mini episodes within the episode. So you've got these different stories going on where they're trying to find these keys, and they're sort of scattered all over the place. So I quite like that concept. The Void are very odd. The sort of rubber suited sort of outfit is quite striking. It's one that starts with a lot of ambition and doesn't necessarily live up to it as you get through each of the sort of parts of the story.
Oh, I couldn't disagree more.
Really?
I couldn't. This is proper traditional Terry Nation fare, this, isn't it? And coincidentally, by the way, this is the very first 6-part story in the history of Doctor Who, and there were 34 6-part stories in total, and you know how much we love our 6-part stories. They all sag a bit in the middle, but this one doesn't sag as much because it's got a really good idea, a good premise behind it, which is this whole, let's take it off to a different scenario literally for every episode. So you get this fantastic build-up in the opening episode where they set the tone on the planet, you know, the conscience of Marinus and all of that sort of thing. And then you whip off and you're on to all these sort of an adventure a week. It's very, very traditional Saturday morning at the pictures kind of adventure, which again is very reminiscent of that sort of 60s era. The Void are a bit of a wasted opportunity because, again, I think they could really have been used throughout the story. You set up this new alien, and you really don't deliver on any of it. But I just like the pace of this. It goes along really well. Different settings up until the trial piece at the end. Then they come back and defeat everything. For me, great little story, this one.
So you're saying that the trial bit doesn't drag?
I think the trial bit could have been 1 episode and not 2, but you're getting to the end of the story at this stage, and I'm not really going to say too much bad about this one.
Not going to be anti-trial again. I love that kind of element too. It's a little bit on this when you get the portmanteau horror films of the 70s, those sort of where you just get a little bit of each thing, and it satisfies me in that sense. And I do like, essentially, it's not dissimilar in, I suppose, the key to time, that you have the different settings to find the different parts of the key, and it's sort of condensed. And they're just lovely little mini stories within it. They don't all make entire sense, maybe, but they're little adventure romps each week, and I think it's a colour and it's got pace to it. Fiona Walker, you're talking about the trial bit. Fiona Walker as the villain. Come on. What's not to love about that?
Proper evil, isn't she?
She's there knowing she'll be back in 25 years to do Lady Painful. And you get lots of villainous telephone acting as well, which is great. The Void are sadly underused, I think. I think it is a great look. Who doesn't love a rubber wetsuit? but it's a shame that they are literally the start, and then it's sort of low, and then it comes back at the end and sort of go, oh right, so this is what we've sort of come back to. And
they should really have popped up I think, throughout this story, and I think they should have been planted throughout all these different sort of mini episodes or mini stories, if you like, because I think they're woefully wasted.
I think we also get another PBal cosplay here, Altos in his dangerous shorts.
I thought you were going to cosplay in a rubber wetsuit.
I was going to say, yeah.
Good gracious me! Now there's a sight.
That's just the weekend. That's not cosplay. But crikey, when you get to the winter wastelands and those shorts, you're going to feel it. So that's another Doctor Who cosplay for the list for me there.
I'm still playing Axon Men at the moment.
Wrong season. Let's stay focused. Focused. Yeah, there's lots. I mean, it's also interesting as well because having sort of discussed Hartnell as the lead, it's very clear from this story that William Russell is an equal lead here, and he, I mean, Mr. Hartnell quite clearly takes a holiday during. He's quite refreshed when he comes back. I mean, you can see a noticeable kind of, I've been fishing for a couple of weeks and I'm back, lads. You know, it doesn't actually lose anything, because I suppose you still have a Doctor figure, essentially, don't you? You still have a protagonist there.
I think the story lends itself to actually you can lose your sort of one of your main casts through this one, and it not be as noticeable because of the different scenarios and because of the fact that you can jump to two stories on and it will catch up with you, and it kind of works. And you know, we forget, I think, in this age where you've got television that's sort of 6 episodes and it's filmed over a period of sort of 2 months or whatever that might be. This was a 44-week season, and therefore 44 weeks out of 52, they're filming. They're in the whole treadmill of rehearse on a Monday, film on a Friday or whatever it might have been, and that's the treadmill they're on. And it's kind of, for an actor at William's age, that would have been quite tiring. So I think it's kind of nice that they introduced this whole thing where you can write the sort of main cast out in dribs and drabs as they do, to give them a fact they can have a week or a couple of weeks off as they go through the season.
And weirdly, that's something they've kind of brought back in New Who, isn't it? The Doctor Light episodes where the companion takes centre stage and the Doctor's barely in it. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's good because you get Barbara and Ian very much at the centre of this story, and Barbara certainly gets a lot of screen time with this. I do like, don't get me wrong, I do like the idea of these mini stories that they're all plotted together. I just find that when we come towards the end, it's kind of like, have we not found the keys yet? The first couple of stories are great, and they sort of move along quite quickly, and they're just one episode, and they go from sort of the jungle to the sort of ice, the sort of what do you call it?
Snows of terror.
The snow. And again, I like the switch between the locations. But it just, for me, it just gets all sort of messy towards the end. And then there's, fake keys and the thing blows up and everything. And it's kind of like, oh, well, let's just go back to the TARDIS now that we can.
I suppose in some ways there's the thing that he sets them off on their quest and gets killed as soon as
straight away.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, well, there's no point bringing it back because he's a gone. And then when they do get back to fix the machine that you sent them out to get the keys to fix, they just blow it up anyway. So the quest is fairly unsuccessful in many ways.
So what was the purpose then of the Conscience of Marinus?
To get Altos and Catherine Schofield together as a couple. It was just like a massive Tinder.
They were doing it to kill the Vord, weren't they? But they ended up blowing up the machine to kill the Vord rather than actually whatever the conscious was, or what it was supposed to do. They just went, let's blow it up.
I think the conscious was meant to be like it would nullify anyone from doing bad things. Whereas when the Ford took control of it, they would be in control of it, and they'd have power over everyone. I think that's the gist of what Mr. Nation was trying to get over to us all.
Yes. Okay.
But I love it because I just think it goes at a cracking pace. There's lots to look at. There's lots of setups, lots of iconicity. I love the ice soldiers. I love all that stuff. I love I love the sort of the jungly thing and the screaming and the notion of them sort of, you know, the entropy of the garden sort of overflowing. I just love all the different elements of it. I even like the bit at the end. I like the sort of trial bit and the mace with the key hidden and knowing where it was but not being able to say because it's incriminating. I like all of it. There's nothing to not like about this. No, I'm not telling you you're wrong here.
The ice guards remind me so. The ice guards remind me so much of that sort of old 1930s Flash Gordon type cinematography.
Sorry, I coughed there. Not because I doubted you, just because I coughed.
We don't edit these videos.
You can all hear me cough. Yeah, no, it's true. It has got that kind of Flash Gordon adventure serial because each week is a new adventure for it. And I know Doctor Who essentially is a weekly adventure series, but when you've got, for instance, the story before with Marco Polo, and you've essentially got 7 weeks with Marco Polo, this is completely different insofar as each week it could theoretically be the end of this story. You don't quite know because the setting's changing.
And I think the challenge that they would have had with this story as well, because literally Nation wrote them a real challenge here, if you think about it. So, you know, you're bound in the studio. So, you know, John Gorry's directing, you know, he's got all these different scenarios. He's got week in, week out, you know, Ray Cusick's got the problem of he's got to build all these different sets. I mean, this would have been a little bit of a budget buster in its own right, this story. But I think, again, all of the production team rise to the challenge of what Nation delivers in his script.
So we've talked around the story now. Are we happy to come towards a score?
Yeah, I think so. I'm good for a score on this one.
Well, if you're good for a score, Jason, you lead the way.
I'm going to lead the way on this one. I think I've been very positive about this story. Lots of good things. Yeah, okay. You could say that it just gets a little bit long towards the end, but I'm not going to be one of those people that says that. This is a proper, good, solid Doctor Who story. Great setup, nice pace. I'm going to give the Keys of Marinus a 7.5.
Your build-up always makes it sound like you're about to sort of go 10. It's just like...
His build-ups always sag in the middle. It's like a 7-parter.
We just got to the trial sequence and it's like...
Oh, Matrix. Is he still giving the score? Yeah, he is. Make a cup of tea. We're back in a minute. So, James, what's your score going to be for the Keys of Marinus?
So my score is a slightly less enthusiastic 6.5.
6.5?
I really don't see the point of collecting all the keys and then just blowing up the computer at the end.
Okay. I am like some kind of kooky French jury, I think, with these scenarios. I don't feel hate. I'm going to give it an 8.
Ooh, that's actually a good score.
That is a great. I do you know, I don't think there's anything outstanding about it in terms of it's not a groundbreaker. It's not, but it is just really enjoyable to watch. I just like watching the story. I can especially at the early runs. It's one of the ones I can just go to and it's just great. And you could just watch parts of it and just I like it. I liked it since I've seen the dodgy UK Gold recording I used to have of it that had the breaks edited and the cliffhangers with the phone wouldn't line up. But yeah, so it's an 8 from me.
It's a good job it's a good job that the Target cover didn't put you off watching it, isn't it, really, to be honest?
the Target cover, which I discovered fairly recently, was that it was just a reuse, wasn't it? They commissioned it for Edge of Destruction and then they didn't do it. So like, ooh, what can we use it for? Keys of Marinus. So that gives Keys of Marinus a score of 22.
Oh, wow, it's quite close, aren't they, some of these scores?
Oh. It is incredibly close. And we move on now to Doctor Who and the Aztecs. So, Jason, have you made any cocoa lately?
I haven't made cocoa lately, no. This again, I think this is the season for historicals, isn't it? And you've set the bar really high with Marco Polo, and actually the bar doesn't lower very far here. The Aztecs is a jolly little romp of a story for me. 15th century Mexico and brutal Aztecs does not make for a very
family friendly
story, let's say, for the family. However, where I think the Aztec scores really well for me is that they've injected some humor into this, and they've injected some really good character storytelling into this. So it isn't just 15th century Mexico and brutal Aztecs. You've got that whole piece between the Doctor and Cameca, and you've got Barbara, who's been mistaken for the god Yetaxa. You've got the thoroughly camp John Ringham playing Theoxtel, and I mean he's chewing the scenery all the way through the story, but it's giving it the piece is written well. It's another great script that's come in, but John Lucarotti's delivered again for this. It just has a good energy about it, good pace, and again, it's one of my favorite historicals from the Hartnell era.
There's a very, for me, the thing about this story is the Barbara and the Doctor relationship in this story, where she wants to stop the human sacrifices, and he says you can't interfere with history, which is, when you think of other stories that came after this, that a lot of them return to that central thing where one of the companions wants to change something, wants to interfere with history to make it better, and the Doctor's kind of cautious about it, and he says, you can't change this. And I love the moral dilemma that puts Barbara in, because we've got to know Barbara over the previous stories. We know she's a teacher, we know that she's very caring, and then suddenly she's in this brutal world. You're quite right, it's not necessarily family friendly, where she's put into this position of power, and she wants to use that power to change history, to save people's lives, really, is what she's trying to do. And you've got the Doctor sort of sat there in the sidelines going, you're not going to be able to. And all the way through, she's really battling against this. And I love the ending where he kind of just says to her, she feels like she's lost, she's defeated, she's not been able to change what's going on, but she has managed to change one person. And the Doctor says sometimes, that really that's what you can do. You've changed this person's beliefs, and he's gone off to the desert to go and, be religious. You have done it. And I know that there's lots of other storylines about, the sort of the Susan and the Doctor and the relationships that they find themselves in, bizarrely. But for me, that's the central thing of this story is Barbara learning that you can't necessarily change history. You can't change the nature of people. And that's quite a harsh lesson for her, certainly as a teacher who cares about things.
And that's another piece that makes this story for me stand out so well, again, as a great piece of historical storytelling from the early days of Doctor Who, because it's the first time that they really have to question, you can't meddle with history. They question it really, really, really strongly. I mean, they don't question it. Not that I remember, they don't question it particularly well in Marco Polo, but this is the first one where they do. And I think it's probably because of the way that the setups there with Barbara being, having all that power thrust almost upon her within the minutes of leaving the TARDIS. It's what makes it a really, really intelligent script.
Yeah, I suppose the difference between Marco and this is Marco, they are basically, they're the victims of it, and they've got to try and just get the TARDIS back, and they've got to sort of go along with it. They aren't in a position of power. As like you say, Barbara is instantly in a position of power, and that position of power then makes her question. It's a great play on the fact that she is a history teacher. I mean, because ordinarily if someone has got a profession of some description in Doctor Who, it's usually a fairly fluid plot point. I mean, Mel being a computer programmer is a bit kind of like, she could tell you what a megabyte modem is or something. Whereas this is an actual drive, because Barbara knows about the Aztecs. She says it's one of her specialists. She knows what the situation, she knows what will happen to them. So she can see the society for its cruelty, but she can also see its eventual end and wants to stop that. So it's coming from a good place, but she can't change their society. And that's, you know, that's the progression on it. So it's nice because she is the center of this. Obviously, Carol Ann's week off, so she's film only because she's sent to atone for her sins, because she won't get married. And again, it's they all have their own individual dilemmas. And Ian becoming a warrior. I literally adore the Aztecs. It's one of my favorite. I adore it. There's so many great performances in there. John Ringham is incredible, and it is. We've discussed this a lot. Doctor Who villains. He is chewing it. He is giving his Richard III. He's loving it. And there's that great cliffhanger when he leans in and you get the thunder, because he's like, this is my shot. See, now nobody's seen Jason's uncanny John Ringham.
I'm doing a John Ringham.
I mean, I don't know if they'd use it for a recon. Let's be thankful they've got the episodes. Margot van der Burg, that is the most heartbreaking of little storylines, that she falls for the Doctor and she understands that she's not going to be with him. It's a...
Hartnell plays so well against it, though, as well, doesn't he? He's so... again, you see that sort of softer side of the Doctor come out, and he's sort of quite flattered, and he's flirting a little bit with her, and it's kind of like that. They really do play it really well against each other.
And comedy, it's nice as he has a little bit of comedy, because obviously he doesn't realise that he's engaged to her, and it's lovely because to have those little light touches within what is a dark story in a lot of ways about sacrifice and things like that. It's lovely. Keith Pyatt as Ortlock, I mean, he gives a great sensitive performance as well, and it looks incredible. The design on it's incredible. What is not to love about this?
There isn't. And I mean, without that humour and without the strong characters, I think, you know, this could have played very much to the darker edge. And I don't think it would have been anywhere near as enjoyable a story as it is.
It's one of those that's multi-layered, so you can take it different ways. There's stuff for the kids there, you know, not necessarily getting the whole human sacrifice part, but there's stuff for the adults there as well, to think about the moral dilemma and the choices that she's trying to make. And I applaud that. I applaud the fact that it does go somewhere dark. It's not afraid to do it. You know, we talk about, you know, some stories are quite frothy and stuff, but this is at the center of it. You have this central theme, and I just love that. I love the fact that it makes you think.
Yeah, always slightly synonymous with me for getting it on video for Christmas '92 and watching it with the Christmas tree lights on and all that stuff. It's odd how you had just that little thing when you watch certain stories, and the lovely video cover.
Was that the one where she had all the whole outfit on the front, which was sort of gold outfit? I just remember seeing.
That's a DVD. That's like years later.
Oh, sorry.
VHSs, they were like the big things that used to put in the big machines.
And it wasn't the special edition DVD either.
Wasn't even the special edition. I'm like, Lord, I'm so old. Okay. Are we happy to go for scores on the Aztecs?
Yeah.
They look happy. I mean, you might not be able to see the full reaction here, but they're looking happy.
I think do a score on this one.
Okay. Shall we go to you, Jason, then, for your score on the Aztecs?
Indeed, I'm loving the theme this week. So Jackie Hill gets a chance to shine in this story. It's so lovely to see it, and she really stamps her part as Barbara. Really, it's great, good all-round historical. Plenty of humour. The subject matters not to everyone's taste, but I can't help but give the Aztecs a very, very solid 8.5.
Not a squishy 8.5. That's a very solid 8.5.
Solid 8.5 there, yes. And my highest score of the video so far.
But for those noting these things. So James, what score are you going to give the Aztecs?
I love it when Jason's giving his scores because I've got time to have a drink, go to the bathroom. It's brilliant. Sorry, Jason.
Watch the story again.
Well, I like to justify my scores. You know, I'm not just throwing out random numbers here willy-nilly, you know.
Oh, like it's Night of the Doctor.
You know, I don't think I'll ever be forgiven for that, but hey, that's fine.
So James, back into the world of the Aztecs.
So the Aztecs, I genuinely like the story. Every time I watch it, I find something new or it makes me think. So I did give it a 9.
So 9 points.
9 points.
I'm impressed. So, drum roll.
I know where he's going.
He knows where this is going. It is never too early for a 10 from Shirley. I'm giving the Aztecs 10 points here. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you. I saved some points from the Daleks. I saved some points from the Edge of Destruction. I've shared them on.
It deserves it. It deserves it.
It does. It is a really, really good story. Really good.
When people sort of say which stories would you recommend per Doctor and things like that, I think if I was to say to anyone, you know, watch a Hartnell story, watch the Aztecs. That would probably be my call on that. We now move. At the end of the Aztecs, they're worried that they might have landed inside something, next to something, or not at all. But anyway, it's the Sensorites.
That might have been a good thing, possibly if they'd not landed in anything.
It's spoilers, isn't it? The Sensorites, which again hasn't got any other alternative titles, I don't fear. So, James, where are you at on the trip to the Sense Sphere?
Oh, it's a bit. even the beginning's weird when they come out onto the spaceship and they're like, "Oh, he's dead," and then he suddenly goes, "Oh," it's just like, what is going on? I am not a massive fan. I'm going to say this up front. Not a massive fan of Sensorites. It's watchable, but as we have discussed previously, there are some stories that you would go to, like the Aztecs, or for me, the Daleks. There are other stories where you're just like, if you're doing a watch along, do I want to watch 6 episodes of this? Jason shaking his head, going no. So I'm assuming
watch along. Would I want to watch all 6 episodes of it?
Assuming you're along the same lines. Once again, we got the TARDIS crew trapped. This time they steal the lock out of the door. To force them into engaging. Susan's telepathy. I'm just going to park that there for a moment because I think originally she was supposed to be this sort of Avengers type character, and they decided that they were just going to go with Tracy from Coronation Street teenager kind of character instead. And then suddenly she develops these psychic powers in this story. It's not brilliant.
No, it's not brilliant. And I brought my extra old Marmite out. Because it's season 1, I thought I'd bring my old Marmite out here. And this is my extra old. And this is my extra old Marmite story because we are going to upset some people here because...
Whoa. How many people do you know that love the Sensorites?
Well, there may be people out there that love the Sensorites. I don't know. But I'm not one of them. Quite frankly, how they didn't realize that the Sensorites were burning the lock out of the TARDIS 20 foot across the studio from there Well, it's just, I mean,
But they kept saying, "Was that burning? Can you smell something burning?"
look to the
Yeah, I
side
think there's
of
something
you.
burning.
I mean, Peter Newman's script. I mean, I'm sure that it had the very best of intentions. However, this is a mess, and it's got very little in the way of plot. It's got very little in the way of anything that you can sort of, grip onto from a drama perspective. The Sensorites themselves have no purpose, as far as I can see, and their planet is probably the most boring place in the universe.
Well, do you know what? I think you're both mean old queens. It's been said before. Episode 1 of this, I think, is great. I love the atmosphere. I love the fact you don't know what's happening. I like you come out, it looks like they're dead, and then they're not dead. And why is that? Why haven't they escaped? What's happening? Why has the crew member gone a bit crazy? What do the Sensorites look like? I like that kind of traditional Doctor Who thing of don't show the monster, don't show the monster, don't show the monster. Cliffhanger. I like that.
Why is the Sensorite outside the spaceship window? Why is he out there?
Because he's flown up from the sense sphere. Did you not get the bit where they're flying across and then they're coming closer? And then, I mean, I don't know why they burn the lockout, go back and come back again. I mean, it seems a non-essential journey, but it's not. And that cliffhanger. I love the cliffhanger where the Sensorite comes up, and it's like one of our chats. I can see Jason now. It's like that.
Are you suggesting I look like a Sensorite?
I just saying something terrifying appears in the screen, and it's cliffhanger.
It's a good job we all love each other, isn't it?
Was that a pause?
Oh, that was a tumbleweed.
I knew I'd get left hanging in that one.
Oh, that was a film insert and Ealing.
I don't disagree with you about the setup in the first episode. I think the spaceship design is good. Again, it's another one of those good. He's drawn well from design classics here for that spaceship set. It's a setup. There is a good setup, but it sadly sags from about episode 2 onwards, because that whole premise. I mean, they're down 3 corridors, and it's kind of the whole premise just drags a little after episode 1. And by the time you get to the planet's surface, in all honesty, it could have been a 2-parter. Episode on the spaceship, episode down on the planet, solve the problem, boom, away, get me locked back, I'm off.
Ooh, she's harsh.
Ooh, she is, yeah. You really don't like this, do you?
I brought my extra old Marmite out for a reason.
I know. I think you might get hungry during your scores. I don't know. I've always had this thing that I'm not a fan of the Sensorites. I'll do a shout out to the only known fan, Kyle. Loves the Sensorites, and I've ribbed him mercilessly for this. So I've always thought I don't, and I was watching, and I thought, you know what, this isn't the horror show that I was expecting. I was expecting to want the Horlicks by the end of it. I think the slight problem you have when you have Doctor Who monsters where they all look a bit similar, that when they start talking to each other, they have to sort of move a bit to know who's talking and get monster dialogue. That's a bit, the moment where Carol says, "Do you know what? If you took off your sashes, we'd none of us know which one of you it was."
Oh,
it's like, oh, could this be a plot point? Could it? This is a very subtle way of introducing it.
I'm afraid I could always tell who were the different Sensorites, even without their sashes.
But the Sensorite then goes, like this, you're just like.
I mean, the Sensorite costumes don't flatter everybody, I'm going to say, but I genuinely love the design of them. I think they've got that lovely that ethereally alien-y kind of. I like that. It's a very 60s alien design. You wouldn't do that now, but I love it. And their big space feet. I love that, and I love that they're again another different monster. So I think there's a great design with them. There's some nice dark bits in the aqueduct, stuff like that down in the pipes. I think there's some nice bits in there. I suppose it's our eternal problem with fagging. I guess it 4 parts would have been kinder to it. 6 parts, it does feel like it's got to tread a bit. give Jacqueline Hill a holiday. You stop up on the ship. Why? Week's holiday. So, yeah, I think it is longer than it needs to be. I don't think it's as awful as I believed it was before, or maybe that people perceive it to be.
Sadly, my rewatch proved that it was as awful as I thought it was.
I mean, the Susan having the telepathy thing, again, it's thing of the week. But to be devil's advocate, is that any worse than, you know, Jamie and Victoria becoming super secret agents for Enemy of the World? Sometimes people just adjust the companion to what they need to do for the story, and it's a shame that that's actually not something that she used before or after.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe Big Finish did a lot, but it is a slightly strange thing.
Maybe she liked it a lot when she settled down with David after the Dalek Invasion of Earth story.
Exactly. What's Jenny bringing us for dinner? Oh, she's got roast lamb. Who knows? But, yeah, I mean, I like it. And again, we've got the softer Hartnell still there. Apart from the cliffhanger where he just basically throws a wobbly, goes, well, you can all get off the ship next time we land. Where's that come from, Grandpa? That's a really weird moment. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm going to be coming out with an I Heart Sensorites t-shirt from this, but I don't think it's as awful as it's been portrayed to be.
No, I mean it's got some redeeming features, but it is not a classic by any description. No.
That said, I mean, my score for this was wavering quite close to where the Daleks set, and they were like that on my which would I rather watch
you
next?
You can't compare this to the Daleks on the same score.
I think I can.
We're still, for those of you watching this who have seen previous editions, we're still being punished for scores we gave for something else, which you may have watched.
And it's not changed our scoring desire at all as we've come through it.
No punishment at all. I mean, I stand by. I think this has got probably a bad rep that perhaps doesn't quite deserve. I mean, I would take this any day over Mind Warp and things like that. So, you know, even though it's, you know, a bit longer. So, okay, well, I think we've put our cards on the table here.
Oh, they are indeed on the table and will be very shortly.
So let's go for scores on the Sensorites. Go on, Jason. You look like you want to go first.
Okay, I'll go first yet again. Episode 1 helps this score. I think it sets the story up well, but it does wobble a little bit thereafter, as I think you've already picked up. The Sensorites themselves, they offer me no menace. They've trapped all these humans. They've offered me very little menace as I've come through this. I'm going to put you all out of your misery. My score for the Sensorites has been derived by my usual mechanics of scoring, and I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10.
I was not expecting a 4. I thought you were going to say 6 then. 6
I thought that was your usual mechanics. Well, it's 6 episodes, so 1 point per episode.
No, I've gone 6 episodes. I'd like it to be 2. So I've taken 2 off and arrived at 4. No, I seriously haven't. It's not, I mean, I've been quite strong in my feeling on this story. It's not the worst story ever. It's not the best story, but a 4, I think, serves the Sensorites up well for me.
Next week won't be a review. It'll be maths and equations with Jason. It's going to be quite the view.
Just a Casio calculator.
Upside down so you can read the words.
Yeah, you could type S oil on. And actually, I used to love my scientific calculator when I was in school, you know.
Oh, everyone's got a first love. James, where are you at on the Sensorites?
I'm just using my psychic powers 5.
That was quite unclimatic. So, okay then. It's never too early. No, could you imagine?
Oh, no way.
No, it is too, it is, in this case, it is too early. I'm going to give, I don't hate it, I don't love it, I don't think it's the worst thing that's ever been put out, I don't think it's the greatest thing. I am giving it 5 will make you get up.
Sing it. Yeah.
That wasn't bad actually all round, really, was it?
My score was similar, but my points were less unkind.
You know, we're here to review. I have to be honest with my reviews.
And usual, very finite mechanics.
Yeah, absolutely. Always the mechanics behind this. And not, of course, reminding everyone yet again that it was my old Marmite story.
He's waving the Marmite, but there's literally one person we know that likes that story. It's not.
Kyle, I apologise to you, Kyle, if it's your favourite story or a story that you like, but that can't be any more than a 4.
You can have Jason's Marmite next time you meet. So we now move on to the end of the season, the glorious climax. We have got Doctor Who and the French Revolution, the Reign of Terror.
So we've just been talking about some fantastic historical stories, and then the Reign of Terror.
Yes, indeed. So 1794, the TARDIS lands in Paris. Nice little flick back to the French Revolution. But honey, this ain't no Les Miserables, that's for sure. Good Lord alive. So if the Aztecs and Marco Polo is how to do a good historical, the Reign of Terror is on the opposite end of that scale.
I'm still recovering from the Les Miserables a bit. If only the Reign of Terror were a musical.
It would significantly improve it.
I just have images of you on a barricade now with a flag going, Reign of Terror.
I mean, it's what it needed. I mean, this story is so dire and so dark and so miserable throughout the entire 6 episodes of it. It's got nothing great about it.
I'm gonna say you're wrong. That Hartnell's hat is amazing.
Well, he gets a bit of dressing up, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I think when Hartnell gets the dress up, he raises the game there a bit, doesn't he? I think he's like, I've got a costume this week. Come on, guys, I'm up in this.
I've reflected that hat in my scores, I can assure you.
Is it part of the mechanism?
Yes, it is. Yes, Hartnell's hat was
part of the complex calculation. Hattage. Yes, it was a hat. Hat. Do you know what? Sometimes there are points out there where a Doctor Who story is missing a couple of episodes, and you think that's thankfully reduced the time. I mean, the animation for this I'm not a fan of, but even with those sort of 2 episodes taken out, for me it's like, oh, I like a historical. I genuinely like most historical Doctor Who's. It's not a topic that I'm particularly fussed on, and it's not told in a terribly engaging way. There isn't a hook there for me. It feels like it's sort of trying to do Scarlet Pimpernel or something, but without the charm or the adventure or the engagement or the fun. And having had the sort of setup for the whole season and the dynamics and the different sort of the team and how well they work together, this just doesn't carry that. It doesn't feel like it takes anyone's strengths and builds on it. Question for you, because in the first episode, so going back to our first sort of, the unearthly child, she's reading a book, isn't she? Saying the French Revolution. Get the words out.
French Revolution.
Revolution, yes, thank you. And she said, well, it didn't happen like that.
Yeah. I mean, the pilot, she just flops like a weirdo.
They haven't been there yet. So have they already been there and they've now gone back and changed it? Or I was watching it going, have they already been to the French Revolution? Have they already interfered in it and now they're going back to try and correct it. Or
that's such a good time the first time. Thought, do you know what? We had a great adventure. We had a right time last time. Let's go back. Let's see what. Oh, it's like going to the same holiday venue twice. Don't do it.
Let's be carried through the streets of Paris on the back of an open cart to be go and beheaded. I mean, that's kind of like it's a laugh a minute, isn't it?
No.
I mean, yeah, maybe she just liked to hope she'd been there. She might have just been a compulsive liar. The whole telepathy thing could have been compulsive lying. She stabs people. There's something up with the girl.
She stabs furniture with scissors.
She's a very confused character. She thinks she's been to the French Revolution. She hasn't. It's a story. It's a story arc that's not been explored because it's too murky.
I think this story is also suffering a little bit by that. I think it's quite obvious from some of the comments we're making. The script it's lacking a number of dimensions in the scripting of this, but it's not without having been documented that Henrik Hirsch had a bit of a meltdown during the recording of these episodes, and he was struggling. He was an inexperienced director who was struggling with, I think, a difficult story in some very confined positions within Lime Grove Studio D. It went to Television Centre. He found that a bit easier for the last couple of episodes. But you've got an inexperienced director at the helm. You've got a story that's written that lacks a number of sort of tonal levels within it. The regulars are trying their very best to carry it, but they're at the end of a very long season and running a little bit tired, actually, probably as well. And the story is just lacking any pace or any energy. And as Paul said, no fun, no comedy. There's nothing in this that can even help to redeem it, other than the regulars and the regulars.
And the hat.
Oh, and the hat. Yes, of course, the hat. Yes.
I mean, if I was unkind, I'd say that the ratings were lowering because people just died watching it. They just stopped living. Life left them as they watched the screen. That's probably harsh.
Yeah, it kind of just limps over the finish line. It's kind of like all of this, you get to the Aztecs and it's great, and now we're on this downward spiral towards the end.
Hey, I'm not including the Sensorites in that downward spiral. I think the Sensorites is all right.
I mean, the Sensorites is worthy of an Oscar in comparison to this story.
I mean, the gist, I think, is obviously the notion was that you'd have planet giants and die, because that's the first block, isn't it? And then there's a gap and a holiday to give them a recording block and all that sort of stuff. So I suppose the zeitgeist is sort of still there. Maybe. If ever anyone sort of wants to have the argument on historicals, I think Reign of Terror is one that you can pull out and say that there is not much. I love a missing episode forum and all that sort of stuff. I don't think I've ever seen much call for. I'd love 4 and 5 back. I'd love to see some more of this.
No, there's definitely no call on any of the missing episode groups that I've seen where they're asking for these episodes to come back. As I say, when you compare it up against Marco Polo, I know we can't see it, but when you compare it up against the reality of what we think that is, plus the amazing Aztecs, this is an example in how not to do a historical. They've pitched it far too seriously, and even the classic Sunday afternoon classic stories that classic Dickens adaptations that they would have been doing on the BBC back then, even they would have had more fun and enjoyment in them. This is taking itself far too seriously. The subject matter's too serious for a Saturday tea time audience, unless you've injected something into it to give it some almost, turn it into a musical and almost go for that Les Miserables feel to it, because that, that's the only thing that was probably going to save this story.
Carry-Ons did it all right, didn't they?
They did it fantastically well. Yeah, there's a great example on how to do the French Revolution or any of those serious things quite funnily, yes.
Perhaps Reign of Terror just lacks Kenneth Williams. Maybe that's where we're at on this.
Oh, see, I mean, I'm going to have to... No, I've not adjusted my scores. I know where this score is.
Does anyone think anything else nice to say about the Reign of Terror? Well, silence is golden, but shouting is fun. Do you think we should move towards a score on the door then here?
Yes.
Shall we go to? Well, I'm going to go to the toilet, make myself a drink. So I'll leave you with Jason to do his score.
Well, it's been a very long season, 44 episodes, and there's been some great stories during this season. But unfortunately, Reign of Terror is just where this season sort of ran out of puff for me. Hartnell's hat and the fact that the regulars are, when they're in it and not on holiday, on reasonably good form. I can't criticize it any more than I have already done so. So I'm going to be giving the Reign of Terror a high score of 2.
2 from Clifford. James, where are you at on the Reign of Terror?
Well, a slightly higher, but no less great 3. It's just not brilliant, and especially for an end of season story. It's
never
kind of
season on a historical, ever, never.
Time Meddler.
That was much better than this story.
I know, but it's a season finale.
it is.
Give it because it had comedy in it and it had all sorts of extra layers, and we're not reviewing it today.
It had a carry-on star in it. You see, that's where they lucked out.
There you go. You see that when we get to the Time Meddler, we'll refer back to the Reign of Terror.
No, we'll try and forget the Reign of Terror. Again, I'm going to do my favourite. It's a 2, and it's a 2 from me. So, unfortunately, the Reign of Terror doesn't break into double figures and finishes with a 7.
That's not our lowest score, is it?
And don't forget, you can always put your comments in the chat below and you tell us what you think about the Reign of Terror. Do you agree with us or do you not agree with us? We'd love to know. Does
Jason need to go to the guillotine? That's a separate topic.
And if you agree that you think it should have been done like Les Miserables, please put it in the comments.
Right.
That'll be on the Blu-ray. Just Jason singing along.
Nobody wants to hear my singing, trust me.
No, we've all heard the karaoke queen at Pandorica. We don't need that again.
I thought I was quite good, but anyway, that's by the way. Right, come to Pandorica or Utopia, guys. There's karaoke maybe.
Yeah, that's not a screaming endorsement.
No.
We are going to go then. Okay, in reverse order. In 8th place for the season, we have the Reign of Terror with 7 points. Bad face. In 7th place, it is the Sensorites with 14 points. Sad face. In 6th place, it's the Edge of Destruction with 6 points. 16 points even. Could you imagine?
More points than that.
I can't even read a simple auto cue now. It's been so long. 5th place, we have An Unearthly Child on 20 points. 4th place, the Keys of Marinus with 22. 3rd place, Marco Polo with 22.5. 2nd, the Daleks on 23. And 1st place, resoundingly, is the Aztecs on 27.5.
Ooh.
And that's a great winner of the season.
It is.
I'll be slightly surprised by the results.
I thought the Dalek story would score a little bit higher.
Yeah, I think Daleks for me. I think I was quite positive about that story when we talked about it. I think it's a great story, and for all the reasons we know, it set Doctor Who off in a direction that we now enjoy. However, the Aztecs is a fantastic little script. It's perfectly formed at 4 episodes, and I think well deserves the winner of this being the winner of this season.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I'm off to the Sense Sphere now to ask them why you've scored them so lowly. So lowly, so little. Not my first language. Thank you very much, James and Jason, and thank you to anyone still watching at home. We shall be back soon. So stay tuned, subscribe and like. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.